You represent an association of logistics and transport professionals. And in thinking about trading goods, the example I mentioned is that trading this particular aspect, logistics and transport, is very intrinsic. One challenge that many people trying to do goods trade in Africa are often worried about is, how do I move goods from here to another African country? My question to you is, how can we make this sector competitive? We're speaking from a Ghana perspective. How can we make the Ghana transport and logistics sector competitive within the AfCFTA?
Thank you very much, Dodi. One of the very first things we need to do is to look at what the cost build-up for transportation is. Because if you, for instance, take, I bought a ticket to travel to Lagos, and when you look at the cost breakdown, almost 32 to 35% of the cost is tax. Okay, and that's just a ticket from the Ghana side to Lagos. And I also know that when you take the cost of fuel, which is used as a source of energy for the vehicles and all that, it also comes at a certain price. So what that does is that, irrespective of the fact that yes, we probably will be competitive when it comes to probably some aspects of production, when you add the cost component of transportation, it increases the pricing, and as a result of that, we get uncompetitive. For us to be able to be a lot more competitive, one of the things we need to do is look at diversifying our transport mix. We have the Volta Lake, and it's supposed to be able to serve the northern part of the country and vice versa. We have VLTC, which was supposed to be providing the north-south linkages.
VLTC stands for Volta Lake.
The Volta Lake Transport Company. Unfortunately, it's been done for at least 10 years that I know. There have been efforts aimed at reviving or revamping it. Unfortunately, it's not happening. Now, we all know, as a matter of fact, that water transportation is one of the cheapest to be able to move things along any transport corridor. So probably one of the very first things we could look at is to diversify our transportation mix so as to ensure that we are able to remain competitive. The second thing also we need to do is to be able to build capacity. Capacity in terms of the quantum of service providers that we have, a mix and diversification of the kind of services that are being provided. Currently, we have a lot of services when it comes to, let's say, freight forwarding and project cargo related. However, when you want to look into specialized areas, for instance, the movement of live animals, the movement of, forgive me, human remains, dangerous cargo, and all of that, you'd realize that we have a very high deficiency when it comes to that aspect of it. Then also, we look at the human capital base. Skills required for a lot of the specialized areas, like in the mining areas, even in the agricultural sector, we lack the skills. Not because we do not have we don't have the ability to be able to learn. The only thing is that we haven't been able to do that information dissemination to enable younger ones or people who are even in the industry to be able to come up to speed and be able to provide certain levels or degrees of service that's required across board, irrespective of industry. When you look at the pharmaceuticals also, yes, it's very key. When you look at pharmaceuticals and you add the agricultural sector to it, you'd realize that even the aspects of managing cold chain, that's the temperature controlled related activity. We have an almost non-existent cold chain transportation network, and not just for the transportation but also for the holding. Because when we look at transport, yes, transport is what does the linkages, more or less like the lifeblood, but there's a logistics aspect where you'd need to be able to hold products. If it's cold chain and you break the chain at any point in time, it has effect on the integrity of the product in itself. And for pharmaceuticals, you could just lose the integrity, especially even in the time where we were receiving a lot of the COVID vaccines. There was a lot of debate as to how do you store it, where do you store it, how do you move it. We have some companies like Zipline who were able to use the drones to reduce kind of delivery times and facilitate last mile delivery services. However, when you look at the scope, that we have presently, it's almost negligible, because other areas like the agricultural sector, where we have the horticultural people, as well as people who are adding value in the roots and tubers, amongst others, also are not able to utilize some of those services as well. Another thing also that we have as a challenge is the fact that when you look at Ghana as a country, we are, all the countries to the northeast and west of Ghana are Francophone countries. As a result of that, when you look at the national laws we have, especially when we as a country are looking a lot more at using the transit trade as an opportunity to be able to serve the landlocked countries, one of the things you'd realize is that our national laws, especially when you look at things like the axle load limitations, amongst other regulations, they vary. So they could carry a lot more weight compared to what we are permitted in Ghana to be able to carry. So when you look at the rate of deterioration of our road infrastructure, that is affected. Why? Because whatever road is being constructed, there are certain characteristics that are looked into to enable us to be able to construct the roads that are supposed to last us a certain period. Unfortunately, immediately we do that based on our national laws. We have other countries that are using higher weights and other weight limitations that are much higher than ours. They utilize those roads, the roads deteriorate, but we are the same ones who have to pay for it in the long run. So these are just some of the things that I think that as we go along, we should be able to work on. That would enable us to be a lot more competitive. But it's very, very key that at the policy level, we look at how we manage, especially the cost of fuels that we use. Because in Ghana, over 80% of what we transport by way of cargo goods we use road transport. The inland water transport is almost non-existent, like I mentioned earlier. So if that is the case, we should be able to find a way by which we are able to better manage it. It comes with sacrifices here and there, but I think it's worth it, right?
Thank you very much. Please, an applause for Mr. Wujanji. I mean, thank you for highlighting these critical things. So if I recollect, the options for transportation, so you're looking at multimodal options, we're looking at skills and capacity, and then, of course, of the operators, and then the logistics. There was one instance where I was involved in a study, and the average age of a truck on our roads, it's about, please don't quote me, it's about 25 years old, the average age of fleet. So even though it's our major mode of transport, the age of the vehicles we have are quite old. And this translates into cost of fuel, wear and tear, and then maintenance. And then obviously transfers to all of us who get to pay for the vehicle or pay for the transport and pay for the food that it carries. So that is something to look at to be competitive. Now, let me come back to Mr. Budawaji, Mr. Wujanji. Yes, you've spoken about the challenges and all of that. What would be your top 3 investment opportunities? If anybody here says, I've listened to you, I want to, support and drive logistics and transport services for AFCFTA implementation, what would be your top 3? Or you have more than 3?
It's a whole list, but
at least you can give us 3.
So, investment 1 in inland water transport, because that would hopefully reduce the unit cost of transporting goods, let's say from Ghana to the landlocked countries, to be able to serve the landlocked countries and also to serve the riverine and other communities within Ghana. That would be 1. The second thing has got to do with technology. We're looking at freight technology, we're looking at last mile delivery solutions, because that in itself is also another opportunity. We have a lot of people and a lot of companies that are producing a lot of goods, but how to get it to the final person is an issue. We also have people from Ghana who want to send things across, let's say, to Malawi, to Rwanda, and other countries, and they do not know how to do it, mainly because they probably do not have a last mile solution to do that final lap of it as well. Another one is rest stops. We have a lot of trucks hauling goods from, let's say, Ghana to other parts of, to the landlocked countries. by our laws, you shouldn't drive, I think, more than 4 hours without getting some rest. So if every 4 hours we require to rest, then that means there are rest stops that are required. And even for the rest stops, you can have very short, a number of services that you can provide. That one, I'll leave it to Odilia to help. But you're looking at like the short stays, you're looking at even washroom where someone can just take a quick shower, someone can just take a quick nap and all of that. And that's one. And then I love the food aspect as well. So I think I'll add one last one that has got to do with, I know this is a bit expensive, but in terms of investing in air transport services. And the reason is
Air transport services.
Yes, air transport services. And the reason is that aviation and tourism are, how do you call it? Is it
symbiotic or intricately connected?
That's the grammar. So, and it's mainly because if aviation is working well, tourism is very, very likely to work a lot more better. And with what we have in Ghana, it's just one of the other things that I think we may not necessarily have done is to package what we have effectively and efficiently to be able to have, Let me just give you 2 examples. So in South Africa, there's the Heritage, I don't know, is it the Black Heritage Museum or something, where you go and all the pictures and things about apartheid are shown. For me as an African, even though it seems a bit off, it was a place I entered and didn't come back out the same. In Rwanda, they also have something similar. Yes, the genocide area. Memorial. And it's another place I entered and came back and I was not the same person. It gives me a shift in mindset as to how I can appreciate what I have right now and look forward to being able to make the Africa that I want. So these are just a few of them, but one of the things I'd like to also encourage is female participation in an otherwise male-dominated area. I know for some people it may sound a bit off, but I can tell you for a fact that a company by name Lady Bird Logistics, fully female truck owners, and when you go to Zen Petroleum, they can tell you the benefits they've derived just by having females participate in the logistics and transport industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for my panelists. Unfortunately, time is on our side.
Observed is on branding. That many people who are